some of those items on that list. If you would mind kind of give us a brief rundown again, Mark, on what's suggested.
Going through the list, for 2016, what is proposed is a master plan update with an estimated cost of $300,000 with $271,890 coming from the FAA and $14,055 coming from the city and state airlines. Also, in 2016, which we kind of had a discussion, was the proposal to acquire land in the runway protection zone on the eastern end of the airport. And the question was posed by the council as to whether or not the city could acquire additional rights or easements over the property that would make it such that incompatible use could not be constructed there. And the question was posed as to whether or not the acquisition of that property was something that would only be needed if the council made a decision to go to a C category airport. I included in the packet a response from Kristen Brownson indicating that the FAA's position was that when that's necessary for the airport to control whether the airport stays at B2 or chooses to upgrade to C2, and that they weren't interested in purchasing more easements, but they wanted to keep simple ownership is what they would like to see happen. I don't know if you want to have more discussion on that specific topic.
Is there any risk they wouldn't reimburse us if between now and then they chose not to upgrade to C2?
No. They see the need regardless of what decision the city makes for the airport upgrade. It's just a matter of the grant funding cycle. Usually the funds don't come in until next summer. And that's the big commitment to reimburse us at that time. If the city were to initiate that process to acquire that property using their federal guidelines. In 2017, $200,000 for an apron expansion reimbursement. In the current year project ended, the ramp was expanded. It wasn't a part of the eligible grant, but the improvement was paid for with funds from the FBO for a lease extension, and this would return those funds back to the city to use for the support of the airport. The $181,000 from the FAA and $9,370 in 2018, we pay means this. We have, as an Olympias airport, $150,000 that we're entitled to receive for grant eligible projects from the FAA annually. And this would just save that match for a future, to match a future project.
I wanted to ask you about that, Mark, because in the past you said bank.
Not save, that's bank, I'm sorry. We pay would be to reimburse the FAA for a grant match that's already been expended.
No, wait a minute. Is that for the AGIS? Which grant money has already been expended?
Probably the land acquisition, I guess, in 2016.
Okay, well, it seems to me that there's been some changes on this that were not presented at the last airport board meeting, the master plan update.
The number has come down a little bit, and that grew out of some meetings that were held at the Utah Airport Operating Association, where State Aeronautics, UDOT, with Terry Lobashevsky, kind of made some changes here and there. There are some differences, but I wouldn't consider them significant changes. To master plan update, the FAA station was $300,000 with a total budget around $331,000. I think the rest are the same.
Could you explain then what the ARC is?
The environmental assessment. So if the city were to adopt a master plan that had a C2 in the future, there would have to be an environmental assessment to see if there were any existing conditions that would be prohibitive for that project to move forward.
Isn't that what the excuse me, Mayor, isn't that also what the proposed second FBO wants to find out because of the landfill issues that are there?
They're unrelated. These are federal environmental studies, protected species and wetlands. It's unlikely that those conditions exist, but what the new FBO is looking at is what's the potential to construct an apron on top of the abandoned landfill.
Yes, but I'm sure that would come up in an environmental assessment, and that would be the big issue, I'm thinking, is the groundwater leakage and so forth. And so, you know, I just hadn't noticed that before when it came through to the airport board. He said there were some changes made to this. So I'm wondering if the airport board wants to look at this before we discuss it more.
Environmental assessment's been on, actually, the master's been on for a number of years. So,
Oh, it's just the other things.
The only thing that's different is the number on the master plan update.
The bank has changed, so to speak. This land acquisition is assessed by the airport board.
Yes.
I just wish we weren't so reactive when it comes to our budget, because that is a lot of money, you know, that the FAA is asking the city to put out to buy that parcel instead of letting the gas station come in. And the FAA is saying just buy it anyway instead of trying to get an easement, which we paid a lot less for those easements in the past than just buying the land. So, I'm just concerned about how far the city budget can stretch in response to this, new requirement, so to speak, from the FAA.
Yeah, assuming the full $1.5 million was in the budget, our match would be $70,000. The bank for 2020 would be saved for future projects, and then the 2021, 22, and 23 projects would be funds that would be available if the city chose to go to a C2 airport. Approving this ADP or Airport Development Plan does not obligate the City Council to make that decision. It's just that the expense is so significant that they want to plan beyond a 5-year period so those funds are available if the city makes that decision.
On the reimbursement on the apron, the FBO fronted out the money to pay for that. So the reimbursement's going in, not really to him, it goes back to
It comes back to the
city.
city. Yes. The city will be able to keep those funds.
As you can see on that agenda for the 5-year capital improvement, there's a couple items that could relate if the city wanted to a C2 category airport. But it's a decision I think the council needs to make a decision on the next little while to be able to put some information in front of the airport board and to give them a direction they'd like to do if we're going to make those funds. And so what we put on the schedule for the agenda on November 5th, our city council meeting, the FFA will come in as representative and give us some information, facts, why, their opinion, why we should stay at a B2 or go to a C2. Armstrong Consulting, if they can make it, will also come in and give us some information to the council, educating. We're also going to invite the airport board in, allow them to listen to the FFA and the consulting to give us information. The council can ask some questions, reasons to stay B2 or go to a C2. And on November 15th or 19th, we're going to have a public hearing. We'll open up to the public and have them come in and express their views and opinions on the information provided by FFA, and also give the council some advice or their concerns, what they want to do on the public hearing.
I'm sorry, what was that date again, Mayor, for this public hearing?
It'll be November 19th is for the public hearing, November 5th is the FFA, and Armstrong Consulting will come in and provide information to council on B2 or C2 airports. We're trying to educate the council and airport board to come in to listen to the information presented. There's also questions to be asked. And then the 19th of November, we'll have a public hearing, have the public come in and express their views and opinions. And on December 3rd, the council will take a vote of what they're going to do at the airport, either state B2 or C2. So we've got the council have an opportunity for a number of weeks to gather information and make their decisions on it. That's kind of the schedule we're going to do with the airport.
So I sent an email to Kristen Rouse and asked her if she could attend our trip. I have not yet a response. I've talked with Armstrong, with David, who I assume he's talking to us, but they indicated that it should be in attendance.
So what if there's some questions that they need to do some research? Is there a point that we can give these questions in and say, well, I'm going to want to know this and this and this, just in case they don't have them off the top of their head, and they could, like economic impact and
What we need to have now between that meeting, if you have some questions, concerns, if you want specifically the FAA or the consulting firm, give them to staff and we'll pass them on and let them see, make sure they're answered.
I think with regard to economic impacts, those are really some of the information that normally come out of the master plan update and do the analysis. I don't think that information is going to be available on the other.
it just makes it hard to make a decision when you can show that it's benefiting the community in proportion to the cost of the costs of everything, noise and pollution and dollars. So I just wanted to be able to know what the benefit is. And we have some intuitive ideas, but I've never seen any data that's showing.
I don't think the data will be available. I think most of the conversation from the FAA and Armstrong will be about safety.
What about liability? Is that part of that conversation?
Could be. I guess my personal opinion is that those that use the airport do so at their own risk. Those that come in that in aircraft that aren't designed for this runway, have more risk. But the potential risk that the city has is, do we jeopardize future funding from the FAA to maintain the runway and the aprons and the taxiways? If the FAA says you don't believe you're operating the airport in a safe manner based on the number of operations of these types of aircraft that are coming, and until you're willing to do something about it, we're unwilling to continue to support you beyond $150,000 a year.
Personally, I would like to raise an objection. I think the time frame, and I appreciate that one that you proposed, I think is extremely rushed. We spent more time discussing the likes of Carl Malone's dealership than we will about this. Case in point, we spent almost a year talking about water rights. We've spent months talking about other issues. I think the airport deserves more than a month to really go over all the issues. It's very complicated, and there's a lot of facts and a lot of things to consider. I think, to be fair to all parties, we need to at least give some time to discover what are the different areas and really explore what those are. I like that we have something presented, but I think we need to at least consider in one meeting for talking about the economic impact, another meeting talking about the FAA, maybe more than one meeting for public input. I just think that's extremely fast.
We are going to be hiring a consultant to develop a new master plan for the city. We are trying to get public input for the vision that we want for our city in the future. I think the airport should be a discussion. It should be included in that. That's going to be taking place over several months. And so, to me, we need to get that kind of public input first. And one meeting is not going to really, it's going to show some, but it's a continuing discussion. I would rather integrate that discussion into what we're already proposing to do with our master plan update.
I was under the impression that we weren't going to go down that road until 2016. I think that trying to do it right the first of December is rushing an awful lot, and I just as soon as we just slow down.
It feels like the gas station's kind of pushing us to jump into discussions that we anticipated having next year, but because of this particular issue, it's kind of pushing it sooner.
contingent upon us going to C2. I don't see a real big issue deciding whether we want to go to C2 or not now.
Well, let me propose this to the council, and it's still bring, if A can make it in on November 5th, it's still bring it in. And if there's more information required from the council to make an intelligent decision, we can extend that another day to them.
May I propose that, considering that with the elections, those who may be elected would probably want to hear those discussions, because they're the ones who will have to make those decisions.
Right.
Would we want to wait till after the election?
I think your point's well taken, Eric. That's what I'm trying to think. Probably if the council has now been involved in the airport for at least 2 years, people have understood. You've both been on the airport, but I think the depth information you two is valuable to the council. And what you've been on board and a few other things, I think we've all had an opportunity to be educated as much as we probably can from the airport board, what I have the last 2 years, and to bring some new council members, we maybe start from ground zero again. You're talking and expanding another year before we make a decision. There's a few items on that capital improvement project. I think the FAA needs to understand, is the council behind them or with them to go C2, or are we going to stay where we're at? That's why I'm really trying to looking for a decision. But what we could do is, if the council feels like there's still information, to get the FAA to come back, or the consulting firm to bring more information to council if they want to. I don't want to take it too long. But it looks like because of the time period, it'll probably be that new council will come in if the council will take a vote in December with it. But we still extend it up to the public. I'd like to have the consulting firm and the FAA come in first, so the public can come to those meetings and listen to what they're presenting, ask some questions, so they can be able to come to the public hearing and offer some ideas, suggestions to the council what would like to work with it. But I guess I feel like I'm not pushing it, but I guess I want the council to feel comfortable they can make an educated decision with what information presented for them at this time. So if the council wants to still proceed, I'll postpone the vote on December 5th until the council feels they're ready to take a vote with it. If there's still more information they need to gather, we'll pull that in and make sure you feel comfortable with it. That's acceptable to the council.
Yeah, I'll admit, I've probably got more experience here. I've been on the board since 2008. I wouldn't feel comfortable making these decisions quite yet, because there's information which hasn't been presented. And I fear that if I feel that way, I would certainly be concerned that other council members would certainly want to have some of that information as well. So I really like that something's been presented and we're moving forward with the goal of making a decision. But I do think there are all those challenges that need to be considered, because regardless, come January, there will be a new council that will have to understand the nuances of the airport regardless. And I think as much information that we can present to that council so they understand what's happening, whether it's a B2 or C2, will just be more prudent for the long term. And I understand what you're saying, with using our expertise, but quite honestly, Heidi's been on the airport board, and I've been on the airport board, but I don't really know how much the rest of the council really understands with what's going on at the airport, other than what's been brought up in council meetings. But it is a very complicated subject matter. So I just can see where a new council coming in, they can be very overwhelmed very quickly, just with what's happening out there. And this type of information is exactly what we need, but I think they also need to hear it as well.
So we're hoping those who are running for city office, that candidates will extend them an invitation letter to make sure they're here at those meetings, so they're educated to come along to council. Which one will be elected will be informed, so we can continue on to have to start over again.
I don't foresee any economic data being generated until the rest of because they're going to be looking at existing operations versus projected operations, fleet mix, fuel cells, how many jobs there are existing at the airport. And I don't think we're going to have a random run that data for some time.
Any other Thoughts on the capital improvement plan for the airport?
Mayor, I do think this ties into item number 7. I've been pushing to get the lease renegotiated with the big space operator for months, and I really feel that until the airport is self-sustaining, that the citizens are really cautious with wanting any upgrades because it's the general fund that's paying, it seems, a lot of these sponsor matches, and then we have to come out of the general fund, you know, this land acquisition according to FAA guidelines. And unless the airport is more self-sustaining with that renegotiated lease and higher landing fees, I just don't see the support there for this upgrade. I don't see it. The airport needs to be a good neighbor and it needs to be self-sustaining.
Any other comments about what I'm going? There's a leasing